The Joe Rogan Experience.
When you first go, so when I moved to New York, I went to Boston Comedy Club and I barked and handed out flyers.
Oh, did you do that?
I did it with Pete Holmes, his show. I did exactly that show. So with Pete, he got me. I moved like 5 months after Pete did, and he was like, "I'm barking at this club," and so I was like, "All right, I'll go do that." I remember just standing on the corner. It taught me to learn to, like, when I have goals in comedy, it was like learn just to have little goals. Like I never set big goals. I always set just a goal that I can get, and then so I was like, I don't want to be on this corner. So I was like, how do I get off this corner? And then it was like, you just want to go stand in the door. Like I would like at that moment dream of just being able to take people's tickets at the door.
Right.
And so you're like, and you're just, handing these flyers out. People are just dropping them in front of your face. Like no one cares, dude. Like just throwing them. It's like 25 degrees out. And you're like, eh. And so, but I was at Boston. So Chappelle used to always come by. This is 2004 or 5. So Chappelle would always come by and do spots. So he'd go up in front of 6, 7 people. No one was there. And then we'd go outside and just say, hey, Chappelle's on stage.
This was when Chappelle's show has already been off the air.
No, it's right before he ended it.
Oh,
right
so
before
it was
he
on.
ended it.
It was
on. It was on.
Wow.
He would come. I remember him coming and having like white makeup on his neck, like if he played like a white person on Chappelle's show, and he would still have it on, because he'd come from there to.
Straight to the club.
And so we'd go up at Boston and everybody would go on stage. And I remember, I'll never forget these one people, they walked by and I said, hey, Dave Chappelle's on stage. If y'all can go watch for free, And Boston Comedy Club, remember, had those steps and there was a window. And they go, I don't believe you. I was like, well, I'm at a comedy club. So I was like, he's in there. Just go look in the window. If he's not there, then don't go in. And they were like, no. And they left. I think about those people every day. They could have watched Chappelle for free.
Those people and that $500.
Those $500. I bring it up to my wife every day. And those people too.
I did Dave's show when he was in New York. When we did this Fear Factor episode, and where Tyrone Biggums was on Fear Factor, and it was in a warehouse. It was in the middle of the winter, freezing fucking cold, no heat in the warehouse. So we had these little blast furnace, those things that they do on sets, where it's like those things that are blowing hot air out, and you just stand in front of that until it's time to do the scene, and then you go out there and do the scene, and everybody would run back and stand in front of the blast furnaces. But he was in character the whole day as Tyrone Biggums. He was having so much fun.
Yeah, he was. Watching him, he would come by, and he would go up for a while. He hosted one when I think it's when Boston switched to the Comedy Village. Like he was like run. My buddy Dustin Chafe is the one that got us. He was running the Boston at the time, and then it switched to Comedy Village. Whoever sold it. But then Chappelle came by one night and hosted for everybody, like even the open mic guys that were going up, because he would come up and just do whatever he wanted, and getting to see that. Bill Burr was a big deal for me. Patrice O'Neal, I used to sit in Patrice's car because he would park it out front of the Boston. You couldn't park there, and he'd go on stage, and I would sit in his car. And so if a cop came, I would just drive his car around and wait till he got done.
Wow.
I saw Burr and Patrice. Everybody's a big deal, but they were big for me because when I went to New York, at that time, 2005, something like that, Burr's just a comic that people know him in New York, but he's not what he is now, obviously. And so they would come by and they would run their HBO one night stands for these 30 minutes specials. And I remember I timed Patrice's one night. He didn't ask me, by the way. Just like a young comic being like, I'll time it for you. And he gets off, and I have no concept of being on TV. I think like he has to do 30 to the dot.
Right.
And I tell him afterwards, I was like, that was like 34 minutes. And he just like looked at me and walked away. Like he was just like, there was no reason for me. I was so embarrassed about doing that. And now I know, but it was like at the time I was just trying to be, a good comic. And like,
did you see his the Comedy Central documentary they did about him?
I haven't watched it yet. I haven't got to watch it yet.
I haven't either, but I will make myself for sure. But I've seen so many of his sets. He was
the best.
He was for sure one of the greats, for sure. But maybe even more important, like he was a cornerstone of not giving a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, you had to have a guy like that was an elite stand-up comic. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And you needed a guy like that to have a great point, like really well thought out point that was hilarious, that showed you why you shouldn't care or why something was stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I remember there was some controversy about Opie and Anthony, and he went on some show, and one woman was saying that certain jokes could never be funny. And, you know, and he went and said, like, a joke that was on that subject that was funny. Yeah. And then he was like, look, but this is a point that he had that's like a really good point that I stick with to this day. It's like, it all comes from the same place, whether the joke is funny or the joke is not, whether it's offensive or whether it's hilarious and non-offensive. It's coming from the same place. You're just trying to be funny. Yeah. And when you're a comic, you understand that, because, like, you'll say something that some people might find offensive, but the only reason why you're saying it is not because you're trying to be mean. You're saying it because you think there's some funny in there. Like, you're trying to find the funny, and sometimes, like, you'll slip and it doesn't work at all. And sometimes
agreeable is not funny.
Right.
Yeah. And like, the whole point of it is, like, I can't agree with you.
Exactly.
Comedy's all built from. Sometimes if someone, like, they'll be like, "Oh, you're being mean to him," you're like, "Well, that's what comedy's mean."
Sometimes, yeah.
It's mean. I told a joke where I said I did something with my dad, but I came out and I did a show. These people didn't expect a comedy, so they didn't know I was a comedian, and I started telling my act. They don't know what I'm doing, so it just sounds like I'm doing a mean speech, because that's what comedy is. If there's no context to it, right? You'd be like, "This guy's the worst," right? Like, and you're like, "Oh," but if I just told them,
right,
I was the comedian, they would be like, "Oh, okay." They get it. I still live to this day by some Patrice said. It was, so I kind of started with Big J, Kurt Metzger. Kurt Metzger, by the way, and Kurt and Big J were one of the comics I ever saw that I just was like, really, where I was like, you moved to New York and you're like, oh man, this is like the real, like, these guys are like really good, you know.
Have you been paying attention to what Metzger's doing with Kyle Dunnigan?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Metzger's one of the funniest guys I've
Brilliant.
ever.
Just super smart.
I remember watching him at the very beginning. He would take me on the road. We'd do like these old weird gigs, and so he would just call me his opener. And I'm like friends with Kurt at this point. I drove him to the gig, and we'd be in the elevator, and he's just on the phone. He's like, "What's that?" "No, I'm sitting here with my opener." I'm like, "Kurt, just say my buddy." Like, you know, like it's not like I'm opening for, like, you know, Seinfeld or something.
Right.
Like,
right.
It's like you're getting paid $800 for this weekend, dude. Like, he just would call me that to my face. And I got him in that room though, because we shared a hotel room. That's where, like, the gig we're doing. And he goes to we're going to the bathroom, and he's like, "Is this lotion?" And I would always just like mess with him. Or if he asked a dumb question, he goes, "I need lotion. It says conditioner." And I go, "That's it. It's conditioner for your skin." And I just tell him that. And then I walk in there, and he's just rubbing conditioner all over his body. and then we had to go do radio. And that's why he called me opener.
He's a brilliant guy, but he's an odd duck. The moment I met him, the first time I met him in Montreal. Ari introduced me to him, and he goes, "Hey, what's up?" And then he goes, "Hey, what are you doing for your hair? Your hair's falling out. Are you doing anything for it?" I was like, "Whoa." I go, "Yeah, I'm minoxidil, all kinds of shit." He's like, "Yeah, me too." Yeah. And I was like, but it was just like literally the first words out of his mouth.
Yeah, like, all right, man.
He's just he's got an interesting way of looking at things, but he's also got a brilliant perspective because he grew up in a cult.
Yeah.
You know, and because he grew up in a cult, like, he sees a lot of those same patterns in, like, woke thinking. And he's like where you can't question certain ideologies, and he gets really angry because no, I know what the fuck this is. He goes, "I grew up with this shit." Yeah. What was he, a Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah,
that was it. What? Right?
Yeah.
And you know, his stories about growing up as a Jehovah's Witness were fucking crazy.
I mean, can you imagine that coming to your door? Like, it was just like, "Hey, what are you doing with your hair?" That's the first thing he says. You're like, "Oh, what are you?"
Well, he's just, I don't know. I'm so happy he's around, though. It make me so happy at the Comedy Store whenever I talk to him.
Unbelievable. And when I watched him at the very beginning, the Patrice thing that I lived. So Jay we used to go to Patrice's house for like 4th of July or something. He always had a party at his house, and so I got invited. And Jay, and then I got into it with someone else, one of Patrice's friends, basically, and he was like, and he told Jay, hey, Patrice doesn't want Nate to come to the party. And then Jay calls Patrice and is like, well, the context of this too is like, so Patrice would always ask me, I grew up in the South, like I grew up, Christian in the South, typical Southern upbringing, going to church, all this stuff. So Patrice knew that, and he would ask me like, do you believe in dinosaurs and stuff? And I would just go with what I would say no. I believe in them, but like it was, I was like, I want to just say no. Like I'm not going to give him what he wants.
Right.
Because then he would make fun of you and it'd be great.
Right.
So I would always do that. And so then, so Jay calls him and says, hey, our other guy says that Nate can't come to your house for that party. And Patrice was like, what? He goes, I didn't say that. He goes, that dude doesn't believe in dinosaurs. You don't think I want that in my house? I want that all over my house. He goes, he can come to the party. And I've lived my life by that. With that open-mindedness to go, if someone came up to me and was like, I don't believe in the moon, I'd rather talk to that guy than a guy that does believe in the moon.
Catch new episodes of The Joe Rogan Experience for free only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps and can download episodes to save on data cost, all for free. Spotify is absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just need to search for the JRE on your Spotify app. Go to Spotify now to get this full episode of the Joe Rogan Experience.